What's up, guys? This is Manoj Bhaktani. I welcome you all on behalf of the Wikipedia world. Now, let's mark the beginning of this wonderful presentation with the first topic of the day, the documentation control. Guys, it is always rightly said that our documentation, our working papers are our asset. Why? Because that is something which we can reflect as an evidence that we have performed a particular task and we have completed our audit in the most authentic, appropriate, and sufficient manner. Documentation is one thing which is always stressed upon for we as a chartered accountants, we as a CA articles. So that's the primary thing why we are always sure of one thing, that we need to document our records properly. Same goes with the organization as well. There are many of the systems and the programs which are working in that particular company, okay, and they require modification each day. So all these things must be appropriately and adequately documented, and they should be properly approved before being used. Documentation basically assumes five of these major things, okay. In any organization, be it from small Lala type firm to bigger kind of organization, you can have this authority that there usually a system flowchart is available, okay, that this particular function is being done by this person. Next, this particular function is being supported by this person. He's a person who is going to support and assist another one. This system flowchart is usually available, how the transaction is moving from one place to another. Next comes the program flowchart, how the program is working from one step to another step, one phase to another phase. This goes on like this. If in case there are some of the program changes are appearing in that company, in that particular software, are we really documenting each and every kind of modification and change which is being made with that program or not? If not, we need to document that. Okay, we need to document the system flowchart, we need to document the program flowchart, and we need to document each and every kind of modification and changes which are being made to the program. Next, if in case there are some of the separate and specific operator instructions are available, so we need to document them as well. If in case that operator is just not available in the organization, then how will we able to perform our duties? Only through his instructions. And if in case those instructions would not be documented, definitely it's going to create a huge trouble for us, and we are not be working hassle free. In that case, we need to document the operator instructions as well. And if in case there are some of the program descriptions are available explaining the purpose of that each part of program, we need to document that as well. Why? Because description is something which is important, extremely important for any of the program, how it is being used, how we need to proceed further. All these things are available in the program description. So all you need to do is, you as an auditor need to ensure yourself that there is adequate documentation available of any of the changes, which should be like evidencing that there are some of the changes which are being approved by the higher level authority. Why? Because this is gonna minimize the probability of unauthorized system and program changes that could result in a loss of control and decreased reliability of the financial data. So you need to ensure that as an auditor that all these documentations are in place. If in case they are not in place, definitely you can try and coordinate with the company's management that why they are not in place, because if in case these are not in place, the company is in short some kind of trouble, because if in case any of these person might escape, certainly the company is gonna be in trouble that day. This was all about documentation control. Now moving on to the third control, that is the access control. As the name suggests, you could get an idea as to what I mean by access controls. By saying of access controls, my major concern is always and always at aiming for preventive of any of the unauthorized access. In any of the organization, be it your organization, be it my organization, there are many tasks which are being performed by many of the persons. Okay, there are no segregation of duties, there are no individual controls which are available. Okay, this is something which is going to hurt the complete functioning of that organization if in case there is some of the program lapse. Okay, so by access control, I simply mean that there should be some kind of controls which are going to be ensuring and aiming that your computers, your systems are being prevented completely and they're safe from any of the unauthorized access. These controls, basically, these access controls, these are the ones that may seek to prevent persons who are authorized from access for accessing the restrictive data and program, as well as they are going to be taking care of one thing, that they prevent the unauthorized persons from gaining the access to the system as a whole. So what you should take care while you proceed towards ensuring that you are basically auditing the system as far as this access control in complete totality, you need to go by this 7 steps. Number one, segregation controls. So guys, as far as the system is concerned, if I'll talk about the segregation of controls, you need to ensure that the access to the program documentation, it should be limited to those persons who require it for the performance of their duties. Number one, access should not be provided to the persons who are not eligible and they are not supposed to work for the performance of their duties in that case. Number one. Number two, you need to ensure that the access to all those data files and programs, it should be limited to those individuals who are authorized to process the data. Check for their authorization. Who is the person who has authorized them up to do and perform that task? Number three, you should take care of one thing, that the access to the computer hardware. Hardware is a very important thing, guys. Just like software. Basically, nowadays, with the gaining importance of software, we're just focusing merely on the softwares as well. But we shouldn't neglect the importance of computer hardware. Their access should be limited to only the authorized individuals. Most likely the computer operators. They are the ones who are going to take care of that. Segregation of control should be made in that front. Next comes limited physical access to the computer facility in your organization. Let's take the example of your organization. You must have seen that there are some of the lockers which are being maintained in your company. There are security personnel who basically take care of all those lockers. Only these are having the keys. Why? This is the relevant point for that. So the physical facilities that hold those computer equipments, those files, documentation, they should have controls to limit the access to only authorized personnel. Usually the security guards, usually the timekeepers are the ones who are basically taking care of them. The types of control, it may include using a guard. You can have the automated key cards. You can have the manual key locks as well. Some of the new access devices like fingerprints, biometric system, palm prints, all these devices can be used to ensure that limited physical access to the computer facility is available to each and every person. Number three, you can have visitor entry logs as well. Okay, who are the persons who are basically going through accessing all those documentation and the complete controls. You can have that visitor entry log. You can maintain a register to ensure that he is the person who came in at so time and ensured that the access is being done from them. So you can have those entry logs as well. Number four, you can have the hardware and software access controls. So access control software like user identification, it may be used. User identification, guys, is basically the frequently used control. And it's a combination of a unique identification code as well as a confidential password. So if in case you want to, like many of the organizations are usually having their a policy that they usually provide the laptops to their employees, okay, in order to ensure that they can have the facility of work from home as well. So they usually have this system software password most likely. So if in case let's suppose I having like provided a laptop, okay, my name is Manoj Guptani. My username will be like Manoj Guptani and a password will be like provided to me in order to ensure that no other person can access to my laptop in my absence. So I need to type that particular password in order to ensure that the same gets unlocked appropriately as per my request and not as per the request of any other intruder. That's gonna be taking care of this particular point, that is the hardware software access controls. Then you have another option of callback. Have you ever seen that you have called up any of the organization and they usually ask you for your extension? Okay. But since you don't have the extension, they usually reject your call or decline your call. Okay. But after later some point of time, you just get the call from the same HR of that company, and same other person basically calls you up. Okay. Now, how do they get to know that you guys must have called them up? Why? Because this is a callback facility. Usually, even if your extension number is not available, they get the message that this person has called you up, okay, and the call was declined, so you can call back any of the time. So this can be used as an access control as well. So let's suppose I am taking care of the system functionality over here. Someone called me up, it rejected the phone immediately, okay, but the call was declined due to unavailability of my extension number. But I know this fact that they must have called me up. I can call back them. I can call them back as and when required in order to provide them the access for anything which they are requiring from my side. Next comes the encryption. Guys, have you ever thought about this thing? Why do we have so many terrorist attacks? How do we have this criminal riots going on? Okay. So this is something which is very much relevant in order to make you understand that why terrorists usually go for this option. So what I'm trying to tell you is this encryption. Usually what they do is they just encrypt their messages in some of the other text forms, okay, in order to ensure that nobody gets an idea as to what their real meaning is. So these messages are being sent from the remote locations, very remote locations. These smaller countries, these Gulf countries and any other nation, I'm not focusing merely on the Gulf countries and other countries. A terrorist attack can happen from any other place, any of the place globally. So these are the persons who are basically taking care of the remote locations, okay, and they send these messages in the encrypted form. And the other person who is available in another corner of the world, he's the person who's going to be decrypting that particular message, okay. So once that is being decoded and decrypted, then they get the entire message in a particular form that, okay, that we are going to be doing this particular stuff in this particular area of this world. So this is something which is very much relevant for you to understand as a chartered accountant as well. Why? Because they are the persons who are doing this for all the wrong reasons, but you are doing this for the right reasons, okay. So encryption is basically done by the organization as well, okay. You can have an idea that if they want to write my name as Manoj, so they can simply write as M, then at the rate, then in place of O they can write 0. So this way basically encryption is being done in order to ensure that the meaning gets changed. However, if in case there is another person who's going to be decrypting that code, only that decrypting person will be like having the access to that code. So this encryption is basically done in order to ensure that the access control is basically being taken care of and no other person can easily see that code. Next comes the computer application controls. Lastly, so all the programmed application controls are basically applying to a specific kind of application rather than a multiple application. And that's what the job of access control is. So all these things are going to be taken care of by you as an auditor while you are auditing any of the system, be it any of the great company, bigger companies, or even the smaller companies as well. So you need to take care of segregation controls, limited physical access, visit and check the entry logs, who are the persons who have checked those, who have taken care of the access, and ensure that all the hardware and the software access controls are being there in place. If the company is there, company is a bigger company, definitely they're having a callback option as well. You need to take care of the encryption as well. So this was all about access controls. Now let's proceed towards the last topic of the day, and that will be with input controls. Okay, so now I'll be like broadly telling you something with relation to your responsibility primarily. Okay, so you as an auditor, you need to take care of a few things. Number one, that you basically input your data appropriately. Why? Because inputting the data in the most appropriate and sufficient form is very much necessary. If in case the input would be wrong, definitely you won't get the correct output in any way. Let forget about processing is gonna be like definitely gonna be in a wrong way. All you need to do is, as an auditor, first of all you need to input the correct data. So these are the basic checks which will ensure that if in case you are inputting some of the data into the system, it is input in the correct manner. Number one is the pre-printed form. Why it is being usually told, guys, that in order to ensure that if in case you are providing input to any of the data into the system, you need to ensure that the same is being documented on paper. Why? Because if in case something wrong happens with your input data, and if in case you need to later on track down, you can simply have an idea that what input did you mention into the system and what was mentioned on the paper. Basically, you can have a direct comparison to the same. So number one is a pre-printed form. All the constant information needs to be printed on a source document, so that if in case there are some of the limited responses to any of the question and they are same being considered appropriate, then pre-print all those responses and you can have this user tick or checklist mark in that. Okay, I have inputted this particular data. Then next, number two, number three, number four, that way. So this is going to help you out with the pre-printed information, and you can be sure of one thing, that yes, you have documented each and every input in that particular system accordingly. Number two is check digit. Check digit, guys, is a basically kind of a function wherein this particular control is helpful in guarding about against some of the errors like check digit. Let's suppose you were mentioning 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4, okay, and you get the total as something, okay. If in case your digit gets changed in, okay, and somehow you mentioned hash in front of them, will you be able to get the correct data later on? Absolutely not. So what happens is, if in case you mention some of the special character, let's suppose full stop, hash, or some other, so this is gonna be changing the entire input for you. Okay. So check digit is basically that kind of is a tool basically which is gonna help you up if in case you mention something which was not supposed to be mentioned. If that column was maintained for only numbers, okay, and if in case you mentioned hash in that, definitely it's going to be showing you the hash any error later on. And you can directly access that, okay, I have mentioned the wrong input over here, I need to correct it out. And you can simply correct it that way. So check digit is basically going to help you up in order to ensure that you have provided the correct input in your system or not. Next comes the completeness tools. So there are n number of things. Okay, there could be a batch control system which you can use. There could be a batch hash total system which you can use. There could be a batch record total which you can use. Plus there are some of the sequence checks which are available. So all these things can be used if in case you are taking care of the completeness tool. Let's suppose I'll ensure you this thing that you get an idea about some of the things over here as well. So why? Because I don't want you to go unanswered with any of your queries. Completeness tool, I'll talk about batch control system. So have you ever seen this, guys, that in many of the system, many of the companies, there are processing is being done of invoices. Usually there are n number of invoices which are being generated each day. They are usually having batch lot system that 50 invoices will be processed in one way. Then 100 invoices will be processed in one way. Okay. Now, let's suppose there is a problem. You mentioned that the lot size, primarily lot size was 50. You cleared out all the invoices and you got to know that only 49 have gone out. You can directly get that idea. Okay. Why? Because the lot size is 50 and the transactions and the invoices which went through that particular system were 49. So you can simply gauge out that, okay, one was missing. So where did it went? Okay. Now you'll be having the complete audit trail in order to understand where that one invoice actually went. And then you can probably get the idea. So this is the completeness tool. Why? Because that lot size was available, only then you were able to figure out that, okay, against that lot size of 50, only 49 were processed. So one went missing. This was done only because of this completeness tool into the picture. All you need to take care as an auditor also that you need to ensure that the company is having completeness tools in place as well. Next comes the reasonable checks. So there are some of the sophisticated kind of form of the limit checks. Okay. An example can be that there might be a check on the electricity meter reading. Okay, that this check might consist of the subtracting of the last reading, which is recorded from the current reading, and the same is being compared with the average usage of every quarter. This is going to help you up in understanding that, okay, what and why has been my meter reading going up or down as compared to the last time. Okay, and if the reading basically differs, it is investigated before processing. Let's suppose I am working on a regular kind of a basis and my lots are exactly the same number of lots which I generated in the last month. I generated the same number of lots in the current month as well. But the last time meter reading was 500. Now it's 750. Why? Now before processing, you can get an idea as to why the meter reading is showing a higher volume and you can detect the same. And if in case you get the reasonable reason for the same, definitely you can implement and correct them up while inputting the data so that it goes down well with the processing and as well as output. So this is something with relation to the reasonable check. Next come the field check. By field check, I simply mean that you need to detect that if in case there are some of the missing data which is available, there are some of the alphabetic or numeric mistake which is being done. If in case the data, let's suppose there is a range problem that the data for the field falls within the allowable value range or not, are the master references are being done completely or not. If in case I'll talk about something relating to size, so the size of that field which is used within it's within that set of the permissible sizes or not, and all these things can be taken care of with field checks. So field checks is going to be taking care of all these things: your missing data, your alphanumeric things, your range, your master references, your size. This can be done over there. Then comes the record checks. So why would you have the record checks in place if in case I'm talking about the input control? There are three reasons. Okay. Number one is reasonableness. Number two is the valid sign numeric. And number three is size. So all you need to take care in record check is if we'll talk about something relating to reasonableness, even though a field value might pass a range check, there could be a possibility that the field check was just not available. Okay. Rightly. But you need to ensure that the contents of another field might determine what is reasonable value for that field or not. This can be done by you in record check. If in case something went wrong in the field check, record check is basically going to take care of this fact that everything went well in that field check, which that did just inferior to this particular point. Then you can have the valid sign numeric check that the content of one field might determine which sign is valid for one numeric field or the next one. Then size is also one of the parameter. There could be a thing that the field basically passed on that particular size of the file, but somehow you detected later on that the input is going to be encrypted if in case this file goes on. Why? Because the size of the file is just not appropriate for your output. So you're going to take care of that in your record checks. And finally, your input control will get concluded with the file checks. So what you need to do in the file check is you need to have this validation control system. Validation control system basically, guys, it examines that whether the characteristics of the file which is used during that data entry are the same matching with the stated characteristic of the file or not. For example, you as an auditor, you need to validate some of the characteristic of the data which you have keyed into that particular application system against that master file. This particular field check is going to check that whether they are using the latest version of the master file or not. Have you ever filed an income tax return? If yes, you must have gone through this problem which I'm discussing with you guys. So if in case you have ever filed the income tax returns directly on the income tax India e-filing.go.in portal, you must have seen that they usually this validity checks are being available, okay, and each day version gets changed as and when the date comes closer, okay. So if in case you have like completed the entire return procedure with one form, okay, and you have not uploaded the same on the same day, there could be a possibility that the next day when you are going to upload that same, okay, and you go for a validation check, the system is going to reflect a message that this is the last version, this is the previous version, and you need to upgrade it to the newer one. So this is the file check. So if in case validation errors are basically being available, okay, you have missed out some of the elements in your input, okay, there is some of the missing blanks, there is some of the missing errors, there are some hash totals which are available. So validation check is basically going to take care and ensure that all the data which you are providing as an input, that is appropriate, accurate, and sufficient. So only then validation check will be approved and you will be able to upload your file. So all these things will be covered under input control. I hope you guys got the complete clarity as to what each and every kind of control does mean, which I made you understand in this particular presentation. So all you need to do is just revise, revise, and revise, because that is something which is extremely important for you guys. Perfect, guys. With this, I'll say thank you on behalf of the Edupedia world. Keep interacting with our questions, queries in YouTube comment boxes. I will love to answer each one of your queries and grievances. If in case you have liked our video and find it useful, do give us a thumbs up. That will help us up in increasing our morale booster. I'll see you in the next presentation with a lot more fascinating topics and covering this particular topic completely in totality in my next presentation. Till then, take care of yourself. Love you all. God bless. Bye.